a few years ago, the European Space Agency was looking to rebrand itself. They wanted to have a new perception because they thought the NASA has a very a good brand, very very well known, but the European Space Agency has a lower brand, and it's too ambiguous, they thought. And unfortunately, as often, and I'm very sorry to the French people in the audience, but I'm British, so I'm allowed to do this. Unfortunately, the French declined to have a new rebranding for the European Space Agency. And it seemed to be the reason, nobody can confirm this, but the French were very happy to have a perception of a brand which wasn't completely, unambiguous. And the reason they gave is, when the European Space Agency, when one of the shuttles crashes, it's European, but when it succeeds, it's French. So sometimes brands and perceptions can actually work when they're not completely unambiguous, And with that in mind, I'd like to really now take this to the possibly the most exciting region for nation branding in the world today, because really we have 4 countries here which I know that everybody in the audience will know at least something about the recent history of that region. And 4 new states which really have, well, let's say a quite difficult task to position themselves and also to reflect on how they want to present themselves to the world and how they want to perceive themselves in a way. So I'll just quickly introduce the participants, and of course I have to, as a Brit with our very bad linguistic skills, apologize in advance for my very bad pronunciation of Central European names, but I assure everybody that it's an equal opportunities mispronunciation. I shall mispronounce all people's names badly, not just 1 or 2. So from Serbia, from the Republic of Serbia, we have the Minister Councillor Milan Gojković. Thank you very much. Well, I've used up my first perfect pronunciation here. Is really not just a diplomat, but I understand you had quite an extensive business experience as well, also in my hometown of London. And you've been with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since 2002. From Montenegro, which is completely coincidentally sat next to Serbia, we have Nataša Jovović. Jovović. Oh, sorry. Well, I'm allowed 1 mispronunciation, I think. And you're also Minister Councillor for the Embassy of Montenegro in Berlin. I think you've only been here a few months, but you've already been here, I've heard, exploring the tourist sites. Yeah. Okay. Moving over to the northern end of ex-Yugoslavia, okay. We have Sandra Blagec. Okay, well, that wasn't too difficult, I suppose, from the Embassy of Croatia, and with quite a long experience representing Croatia abroad, also based in Berlin. And finally, we have Marko Štucin. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Representing Slovenia, and you've been at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Slovenia since 2006, I believe. That's right. And you're first secretary at the Slovenian Embassy. Good. Obviously, the role of this panel discussion is to really concentrate on looking at how small and medium-sized states position themselves and brand themselves, but I really wouldn't be doing this panel discussion justice if I didn't start off talking about the Balkans. And I think the presenter, the last presenter, he might have gone home now, but he made some disparaging comments about Frankfurt. So I heard how it's got a bad image. And while he was saying this, I was thinking, well, when we think about the Balkans, what do we think of? And my new hometown of Frankfurt, we have, I don't know if you know this, we have a German, Stefan Hartl, I think his name, who's now rechristened himself Chantel. And some of you might have heard of this. And he's a DJ and musician, and he's formed the Bukovina disco club, I believe it was. And he's one of the biggest selling, most renowned musicians in Europe today. And he calls his music Balkan music. And if you go around Germany in particular, you will see many Balkan music festivals. Very, very popular, very famous. And it strikes me, there's a paradox here between, the countries seem to be trying to escape from the Balkans, whereas at the same time, the Balkans doesn't just have a negative connotation from war or revolution, but there are some positive aspects as well. And I'd like really to start with you, Mark, if I may. There are some negative aspects to Balkans, obviously. We can't wipe away the history of the last 20 years, but is there an argument to resurrect or to rebrand the Balkans as well, not just Slovenia?
Well, it's a question if we want to rebrand it or make a brand of a Balkan. That's a question that would probably take us much longer than 15 minutes. But yeah, but what can I definitely say is Balkans as a term, unfortunately, has a negative connotation in recent history, as very similar as the term Eastern Europe, for example, though it's a little bit different, but still the connotation is the same. Nobody really wants to be in the Eastern Europe. Nobody wants really to be in Balkans. Although both terms really have, I mean, you can find if you explore both terms, there are numbers of issues, number of topics, number of things that are really positive, that are extremely interesting, that are actually much better than in other parts of Europe or in other parts of world. For example, as you mentioned, really good at the beginning, Balkan music, Balkan culture, Balkan movies, Balkan food. Those are the things that nobody can dislike when he tries or hears or sees. But of course, viewing it from the perspective of recent history, we have a problem. We had wars, we have conflicts, and we have to find a way how to get rid of those connotations from the term Balkans. I think we can do it, but the question is if we really, as countries, if we really want to make a brand out of the Balkans.
Okay, thank you. Nataša, is Montenegro a Mediterranean country or is it a Balkan country?
Well, Montenegro is a country of rich Balkan history, but also a mixture of Mediterranean and European spirit. And I must say that since in Montenegro there are many, besides Montenegrins, there are Serbs, Albanians, Bosnians, Croats living there, and we are very much proud of our multi-ethnic and multicultural character that we have preserved and cherished for quite a long time, for centuries. So we don't escape from the term Balkans. We know that in the last decade or so the region was associated with these tragic events and was known for the tensions and terrible bloodsheds. But now after so many years, these things are changing, and now I think the region shares one goal, and that is the goal of European perspective, and that is what Montenegro also is one of the strategic priorities of Montenegro is the regional cooperation, and this year is especially challenging for us since we have taken over the presidency of 3 important regional initiatives, and one of them is Southeast European Cooperation Process, Adriatic Union Initiative, Central European Initiative. So small Montenegro, but big tasks, but we are really keen on working and really very much committed to this, as I said, regional cooperation, because when the region, it doesn't give benefit, it provides benefits for the region, but also for each country individually.
Thank you. Milan Gojković, basically the same question to you. Obviously, you don't have the luxury of being a Mediterranean country. So do you, and I'm counting on you now, is there nobody who's going to stand up for the Balkan brand?
No, I think in Serbian case it is inevitable, and I think I won't dare to speak in the name of my colleagues, of course, but as a country we are not escaping of that image. I have, first of all, have to remind you all, actually, I don't know how many of you know from what does Balkan means in Turkish. It means two words, yes, it means two words, and actually it's honey and blood. That means that actually, and it symbolized in a good way, actually, the history of the Balkan. Actually, it symbolized that Balkan went to some tragic events and tragic period, but also it symbolized actually the diversity of the region, the richness of the region as such. As in Marco mentioned and you, Nick, mentioned, actually there are some good brands coming from Balkan, such as the music, food, nightlife, wildness, which is needed to Europe, which is attracting, especially to Serbia, a lot of tourists from all over the world. So actually, I think that the part of rebranding Serbia, which is very difficult, extremely difficult task, given the consequences, legacy, and heritage that we have from the 90s. Actually, when we run one dictator, actually, the consequences are still vivid, not only in Serbia, then in the region, but actually the part of changing Serbia image is also rebranding the Balkan. So giving a new association for the Balkan in terms of regional cooperation, which actually Nataša mentioned, we have now very good, actually, combination in the region, that we have all democratic countries, that all countries has ambition to join European Union. So actually through regional cooperation, through economic cooperation, we have CEFTA, that's a free trade agreement enabling us to trade, to have a free trade among our countries. I think that through the cooperation, to the regional cooperation, to the economic development, we do have chance. We need, of course, the time and a lot of patience and effort, but we can rechange that brand. And Marco has mentioned actually that there's another terms for that region, such as Southeast Europe. The Western diplomats invented for several years ago, actually, Western Balkan. So it should give us a flavor that we are somewhere on the West, which has a positive, actually, association and perception, but we are all Balkan countries. And so I think it's inevitable. Speaking from Serbia, it's inevitable, as we are Balkan country, we are not escaping for that heritage. That heritage, of course, is a difficult one, but we are in the course of our further discussion, we will touch upon how we are planning to change it.
Okay, thank you. Sandra Blagec, to round off this discussion on the particular merits of the name, the term Balkan, how does Croatia, or how do you yourself describe your country? Are they part of the West Balkans? Are they Mediterranean? Is it maybe Balkan?
We would say it's a Mediterranean country for Croatia, yes, but of course it's a part, as Milan mentioned, of Southeast Europe. We would not use the term Western Balkans, but Southeast Europe. Because again, as Marco said, and the Montenegrin colleague also, there is some, well, not a positive sign when you say when you say the Balkans. It doesn't sound very nice. Although when you think of it, you can make a very good brand of it, because this is a small area with different nations living on it, speaking different languages from different cultures. And again, if you want to make brand of something, it's a brand of multiculturalism, of tolerance, of flexibility, of people living on a small area of different backgrounds. But this is another story, because we were focusing on branding Croatia, of course. And if we are talking on branding Croatia, we were focusing also of Croatia as being a touristic country. So first of all, Mediterranean, then, well, we have also mountains, partly of going to Slovenia, and then we have Pannonian Plains. So there are 3 different regions in Croatia that we would like to develop tourism, and we started to do it quite aggressively in last 10 years after the war. And I would say we succeeded in those frames that we were given, and in the time frame which we had, like last 10 years, I would say.
Okay, thank you. I sense you almost weakening there, because you held out the prospect maybe in a few years down the line that maybe Balkans could get a positive...
It could.
Yeah.
I'm positive it could.
Okay.
But at now, and we are talking now, after the breakup of Yugoslavia, no one was thinking about the Balkans and rebranding Balkans in a positive terms. We were all thinking of rebranding our respective countries. So that's what we were doing in Croatia and in Slovenia and Montenegro and Serbia. So we were not focusing on Balkans, but it can be done.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's get more specific now, the individual countries. We had some interesting presentations last few days, and I was particularly interested with the Irish speaker, the ambassador. And, well, Marco, he made the point that there is this friction between trying to present a modern image, a new image, cosmopolitan image, but also the fact that Ireland is well known for many things which are quite old-fashioned, which people hold dear. And I'm wondering, particularly in the case of the ex-Yugoslavian states, you've had to recreate from history nations which maybe hadn't existed for hundreds of years, or maybe never before. So you have to use history, you have to revive as part of your nation building process, your folklore, your costumes, your music, your traditions. But at the same time, is this difficult then to then present a modern image to the world?
Well, I have, thank you for the question. I slightly have to disagree. First with your starting that we had to recreate our images. In Yugoslavia, all those countries that were republics in Yugoslavia kept old traditions and their images. Slovenia, as Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, had their own flags, had their own symbols, spoke their own language. In Slovenia, the official language was Slovene, which is different from Croatian or Serbian. So it was not really necessary to rebuild our identity. I could say the identity in our case was already built. It was the question of building making the new image as a state, because Slovenia was, I mean, in a history it was always an entity. It was part of Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was part of Yugoslavia, for example. It was, but it kept its own identity, and we had to upgrade this on the state level. That was the question. And speaking about our history very shortly, in the last 20 years, we had several. We tried several times to upgrade it to the level which would be high enough, which would be recognizable outside our country, outside Europe, and we are progressing, I would say. But for a young country, I mean, 20 years in a life of a country is nothing. It's not much, and you shouldn't really hurry. In our case, there were discussions to change a flag even, but if you're looking at the statistics, what really makes a difference? What really increase the investments in our country? What really increase the number of the foreign tourists in your country? I mean, I was playing with the Google Trends yesterday. It's an interesting tool when you type a name of something and you get the results. In our case, when I was looking in the year 2006, particularly when we invested a lot of money in the CNN commercial, the numbers, the hits of Slovenia in Google were quite low, actually. Very high. The really the highest number of the hits was when Slovenia played at the football world championship.
I was hoping you wouldn't mention that. Actually,
it was. I mean, it's a small picture, but at the end, here you can see a really big jump up, and this is World Championship. So I would say successes. I analyzed it shortly, where the peaks are and what happened there. Entering the European Union, Euro, entering in the Schengen, playing against USA on the World Championship, playing against England, beating Russia in the qualifications. I mean, those are the peaks that I found in Google Trends, and I would say you can try really hard. You can recreate your brand. You can invent your own new flag if you want. But what it really counts, it's being a successful story. It's making stories. It's making successes, and in our case, at least, but I'm sure for all the others as well, making successes increases your brand as a country, and I think that's almost the only thing which counts at the end.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, if being a success is the only thing that counts, then England playing very badly in the World Cup hasn't done our brand very much good. Actually, I was hoping to talk about that particular point regarding the flag a little bit later, but as you've mentioned it, the question, the thought occurred to me, when Slovenia was actually thinking about the new flag, and there were several designs got up, and I think even one was agreed upon. And I saw one where they had, your flag is now sort of red, white and blue, but now they wanted sort of a dark green, light green, white version was being talked about. And it struck me, how far should a country go? I mean, to change your flag is quite a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, it's a big thing. That's why we didn't change it. But as I said, 20 years in the life of a country is nothing, and the discussions are allowed, the experiments are allowed, but changing a flag, even we did have an open call and a competition, and there were more than 200 ideas of a new flag. I think it would be really hard to convince the public to change the flag, because that this you can't do really. Really quickly or really freely. The Slovenian flag, although it looks like it's similar as a flag in Yugoslavia, although it's similar with as a flag of Slovakia or Russia, for example, but it's our flag from 1848 from Habsburg monarchy. The Ministry of Internal Affairs in the Habsburg monarchy, so 150 years ago, recognized the colors of this flag as the colors of this region. And changing something so old, it's not so old, but still much older than our country is, requires deep discussion among everybody in Slovenia, and we had such a discussion, and it proved that there is no really a need to change it. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, you have to prove yourself as a state to be recognizable. You don't have to change a flag. You have to make results.
Okay, thank you very much. Milan Gojković, particularly the Serbian example is a very particular example, and with very particular history. And I want to go back as well to this point about modernity and a modern image and history. I mean, particularly with Serbia, has a very, very interesting long history, also as an independent state. And I'd really like to sort of get behind the thought processes in Serbia today regarding, you know, whether with the branding exercise, the temptation is to go back and to draw on these rich historical experiences, or, you know, particularly with the recent history being problematic, or whether there's a decision to draw a line with the past and to go towards a new, more modern image.
Yes, it's $1 million question. I don't think that actually Serbia, that we are quite clear what we want to do. We have some ideas, but of course Serbia is a country with very hard legacy from the past, with around 800,000 refugees from Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo living in Serbia. For a country of 8 million people, it's enough, it's more than enough. It's a country which was completely physically and morally, economically destroyed in the 90s, even NATO alliance ran war and campaign against Serbia. And this year actually is for us very symbolic one, because in this year, on October the 5th, we will mark 10 years of anniversary of the fall of Milosevic regime, actually. Milosevic was dictator, actually, who was running a country for 13 years in the 90s. And so Serbia now has a fourth democratically elected government on the power. In Belgrade, it's a democratic country, country which actually, in spite of the challenges which we still have, it's, I will say, only Kosovo issue and regional cooperation, which is fostering, but it's not perfect. We have also some unresolved bilateral issues in the region, which is also burdening creating of new image or rebranding of Serbia. So in spite of those challenges, actually, we are trying to position Serbia in a different way, which is unfortunately still known, not only here in Germany and the rest of the world, through the images of the 90s, the images of the wars, refugees, war criminals. And we are, as you mentioned, we are not a Mediterranean country. We don't have seaside coasts in Croatia and Montenegro, which could help us to promote ourselves as touristic destination. But despite of that fact, Serbia is very interesting and dynamic country. And we see our new image in several dimensions. I will mention a few of them, actually. We should be also developed in the future in order to promote Serbia in a different way, which is known, dominantly still known. And that is music. Through the music, you mentioned Goran Bregović in previous talk. You mentioned Balkan beat, brass orchestra. We have several festivals. Now we have festivals in Novi Sad, Exit. This festival was actually listed from in United Kingdom as the most popular pop festival in Southeast Europe. And the Novi Sad is a town of 300 inhabitants. And during the festival, I think that Novi Sad receives more than 600,000 people from all over the world. Another exotic festival in Serbia, which is very attractive for the Western tourists, is Guča Festival. It's a brass music festival. It's a village in central Serbia of 10,000 people. And I think in the period of Guča Festival, I think there is 300, 400,000 people from the European Union, mostly, but also from the United States and Canada coming to the Guča. It's the most famous brass festival in the world. So one is the music, another is the nightlife. I don't know if you know, but Belgrade was listed from the New York Times as the most exciting place in Southeast Europe, well known for the good nightlife. and we have a rising number of tourists from the European Union and from the region coming to Belgrade only to enjoy in Belgrade nightlife. So it's also a way to promote country differently. Another is sports. Serbia is a sport nation. We have extremely good tennis school. You all heard from Jelena Ivanović, Novak Djokovic, Ana Ivanović, sorry, Novak Djokovic. So through sport, that's was mentioned also by Marko, one country, perception one country should be changed. So those are elements of the new brand of Serbia which we are trying to promote in spite of some difficulties that we still have, and there is debate in Serbia. Can we successfully develop the new brand, a new image of Serbia when we still have some unresolved issue? I think we can parallelly do those things to resolve some still open issues such as the Kosovo, and to create a new image of Serbia. Another school, a school of opinion in Serbia say, no, we first have to deal with actually the past. We have to capture Mladic, it's the fugitives from Srebrenica, who is still at large. And we have to resolve Kosovo issue, and then we could actually, with full success, devote ourselves to in creation of new image. So those are two different approaches which are present in Serbia, and actually on our way to rebrand Serbia as a country.
Thank you very much for a very, very honest and forthright answer. Sandra Blagec, we've heard about the role that sport can play and musicians, but in a way this is quite difficult for governments to regulate sporting success. I mean, coming from Britain, believe me, we can't regulate for this sporting success. So I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a Finnish diplomat who said that they wanted to undertake nation branding in Finland, but the Finnish people are too modest to go out and say how good they are. And they came to the conclusion that they should encourage Finnish students and Finnish school children even to take up debating classes and talking classes, so that they discovered the habit of talking about themselves, their lives in Finland. And I'm wondering, looking at the Croatian example, to what extent, I mean, leaving aside sport and the lovely coastlines, because I'm sure the Croatian government is not responsible for the beautiful coastlines, but are there actual things which you change in society, or you want to change in Croatian society in order to as part of this new branding exercise? Maybe here branding is maybe too limited a word, but it's sort of a new sort of
image of Croatia. This is, I would say, what Marko was talking about. Actually, you can have the best commercial ever, but it won't help you very much. I mean, in a way, yes. Well, people will Google you or whatever, but it will not have a systematic improvement on your economy, on your revenue, on the number of tourists that will visit your country. So the only thing you can do, you have to make, as Marko said, success of your country. So either you do it by yourself on purpose because you want to do it, you have to do it, or you do it because you have to do it, like we are now in a process of negotiations with the EU. So there are lots of things that we have to do, actually, which is good for our society, for our country, of course, but would never be done so quickly and so efficiently if you don't have those deadlines that were imposed to you, which is great, actually. So this is what is Croatia doing right now. We are at the final stage of our accession negotiation, if I might say. We are hoping to finish the negotiation at the end of this year or beginning of the next to sign the ratification, to sign the accession treaty. Hopefully in a 1 year time, and then we have to wait for the ratification process in all member states. So once we become the EU member, also the perception of the country will change. This is what the government has done. Not only the government, but all the people who are involved in this, and there are thousands of people working on this.
Will you be joining the Euro as well? Sorry, I'm going to abuse my position here to try to get a...
I think it's too early to talk about
Okay.
it.
There are no cameras here this evening.
With the Euro like this, I don't know.
Nataša Jovović, you know, as a representative of the smallest country here, I think members of the audience, I mean, there are going to be many here who will undertake or maybe are undertaking nation branding exercises on behalf of their countries now. And I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that Montenegro has, I think, 600,000 people, is that right?
Something over 660,000 people.
Yeah. What actual tools can you use? Because obviously the budget and resources for such a small country are quite limited for this.
I guess communicating of our national brand started with the manner in which we have conducted our referendum in 2006, which was peaceful, in accordance with all democratic standards, in close cooperation with the European Union. You know that we have been given certain census that we must pass in order to have for a referendum to be valid. So we passed this number. As I said, this peaceful manner was one of the positive messages that we have sent out to the world. Here is a new country, but not a new country. It's a old new country, because Montenegro existed before, actually.
That's a very good slogan, I think.
Yes, actually, but the official slogan is "Wild Beauty," but we're not wild. Not only after regaining independence, but also in the times of former Yugoslavia, tourism was the most promoted aspect of our national brand, and there are many reasons for this, because our natural beauty is, although on a small area, only 13,512 square kilometers, if I'm not wrong. So natural beauty is very diverse. You have mountains, and then you have the coast, the total coastline, 290 something kilometers. Then the vicinity of mountains and coast makes it also more attractive for tourists, because in one day they can explore the mountains, in the afternoon they can swim in the sea. So I guess tourism is we put much focus on tourism, but also when you ask me about how does Montenegro feel like if it's a Mediterranean country or so, we have a very distinctive cultural heritage, so from influences from different periods. So and again, also I think the genuine hospitality of Montenegrin people also really adds up to the overall perception of the country as a whole. So.
Okay, thank you. I can sense already there's some questions out there to be asked, but I'm just going to ask one more question of the members of the panel first. But particularly, what I'd like to do when I get questions from the audience is maybe the specific things that you can learn from the experience of the small states and medium-sized states on the platform today. I think maybe Marko Štucin, as a diplomat, you're involved also in sort of public diplomacy as well, which is the polite word for propaganda, as we used to call it, and as well as representing your country. And as well as representing, your country abroad, you also deal with the diaspora community, the overseas communities from Slovenia. And I'm wondering, what role does the embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is there a role to play with the overseas community and the rebranding exercise? What level of contact do you have? And the reason I'm asking this is because a lot of the smaller countries, many of them represented in the audience today, they have a large overseas community in Europe, which is fundamental to really views of a particular country or place.
Of course, overseas community plays an important role in our case, but on the other hand, not so important as maybe plays in some other countries. Slovenia's overseas community is actually rather small, although in Germany there are by some information which are not official because nobody is required to sign as a Slovenian living in Germany. Around 40,000 Slovenians living in Germany. Of those, around 3,000 or 4,000 in Berlin. Of course, contacts with the Slovenian community abroad is extremely important because they're the expats of our country living in other countries, are the walking commercials of a country. I mean, they are those who are living abroad and who can really represent their country in a positive way. And as the embassy, we are constantly involving with our community here and trying to support them in organizing events. We are joining the forces in promoting Slovenia on a different levels. For example, when we want to bring some Slovenian artist in Germany, which is who is a good example of Slovenian culture, we always try, also as the embassy, try to make first contacts with our societies in Germany, ask if they may be interested to organize concerts to present our authors, and then if we do join forces, we can not only make one concert or one exhibition, we can make a series of, more of them, and with using making good connections establishing good connections with Slovenians living here, effects of making your country more visible is much bigger, of course.
Thank you. Sandra Blagec, we heard from the Irish ambassador where he said one of the selling points almost of Ireland, if I can use that expression, or one of the positive perception of Ireland is that it had this experience where it broke away from Britain, because it was seen as maybe not a revolutionary country, but as a country which, although small, stood up for itself and founded itself as an independent state. And he said that this was actually a sort of selling point for Ireland, open doors in places in Africa that became independent, say, 20 years later, 30 years later. And he said that you could almost use this as part of the branding exercise. And I'm wondering, does this apply to Croatia, or is it something that you say, well, that belongs to a chapter that is finished?
I would say it does not apply to Croatia. That it was a somewhat different story, because Yugoslavia was perceived as a very neat, nicely arranged country, and well, it was not. It created problems that we all wanted to get away out of it. So honestly, I would say that Croatia was left with quite negative international image after the breakup of Yugoslavia. On top of everything, when you said Croatia at that time, what would you think about the pictures of war, of killing, of shelling? But it was, I would say, it would be the first image that you create in your head in the period of 19th. So we had to, actually the government and everybody else, we had a really tough task of rebranding the image of country. So it was not possible at that time to fight that image because that was how it was. And then you had to find something else, some key factor that you should focus your branding campaigns. And what we came up with, what was very obvious, was the tourism, and this is what we had. So complete rebranding was done, and it was done kind of aggressively, but there was not other way than to do it like this, to promote what we have in nature, so the landscapes, the cities, the very rich cultural heritage, and all that kinds of stuff, and to induce, let's say, to coming of tourists to the country, and also the investors to come and to invest, because what we were looking for was, of course, the investments, the money to start up the economy, because we were dying with all those refugees that we had in the country, that you had to take care of, that you had to feed them, to give them the houses and everything. So with this campaign on the tourism side, I would say that we did complete rebranding, and now the things look much, much better.
Okay, thank you very much. We're sort of running out of time here now, so I'd like to throw this open to the floor, but I'm going to put, as you get your questions ready, I'm going to put our participants on the spot right now, and as branding is, well, it's a part of advertising, I'd really like to put them all on the spot here, and if they could describe their country in one sentence, and one sentence only, how would they do it? Nataša Jovović.
Well, I would like to use the words of Lord Byron, who said that the most beautiful merging of the land and sea occurred on the Montenegrin coastline, because many travelers, poets, painters who saw Montenegro, who discovered it, really fell in love with it. So I would just like to use this sentence, not to.
Okay. Milan Gojković, how would you describe Serbia in one sentence?
In one sentence, it's an interesting, exciting country, actually, which deserve to be visited.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll just rephrase our official logo, which is "I feel Slovenia," with love emphasized. So I would say you have to feel Slovenia to really love it.
Okay, and Sandra?
But in short, I would say land of thousand islands.
Okay, very nice.